Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. I'm delighted to be joined today by Neil Landau, owner of Village Estates in Radlett. Only been doing it for a few minutes, I think about 38 years. So you look very well for it, Neil. So thanks very much for joining me today. How are you
Well,
doing?
it's such an easy. Yeah, I'm doing good. I look well because it's such an easy business.
Okay, well we'll talk about it being an easy business. So tell us how did you decide to become an estate agent and survive
Uh,
it for this long?
okay, well, I didn't start. I didn't start till I was 24, 26 when I became an agent. I was in other businesses before. My father had a restaurant business, and I worked in that, and it just wasn't for me. I got involved in another business, and it wasn't for me. And I had a friend of mine who was an estate agent, and I seemed to like what he was doing, and I basically ended up getting a job at Best Eves in Hampstead in 1984. And my first appointment there was a deal. I remember it very well. What the guy said to me, it was a very funny deal, but I got that agreed. And it was like the first ever appointment at estate agency was a sale. And 18 months later, I opened Village Estates in Radlett in 1986, April 1986. And my first appointment there was a deal. So I was probably destined to be in the business, I suppose. I don't really know that, but that's how it seemed to work out. And I
Okay,
just moved on from there. Moved on from there.
brilliant.
I opened an office in Radlett, as I said, in '86. It was a very small office, two people in there. It was a party, but I worked 7 days a week, and I grafted and I grafted and I grafted. And a few years later, I got a bigger office, which I'm still in, and that's it. And I've been there ever since.
Okay,
I
brilliant.
opened up other offices as well, but that's another story.
Okay, right. So let's go back. Let's start at the beginning. So
Hmm.
first Eves, first day, first
Yeah,
appointment. Okay,
yeah.
how did you get that first deal? No training whatsoever.
No, training
And you did.
is a it's quite a fire. I think for estate agents would like this story. If you're not an estate agent, you'll just learn. Basically, I had this flat in Hornsey Road. I remember it was about 32 grand, and and I made an appointment for this guy. In those days, you didn't have company viewings. This guy went to see the flat. He brings me the following morning and he says, I want to make an offer. And I think it was 32 and a half grand was a flat. He might have offered 30 or 31. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I said to my manager, who coincidentally was also called Neil, I said to him, what shall I do? He says, well, just put the offer up and see what the guy says. So I thought, I didn't have a clue. I've been in an agency literally 24 hours. So I rang this guy up and I said to him, called him Mr. Smith for sake of argument. I said, hi, Mr. Smith, I've got an offer on your flat, 31 grand. I said, it's a really good buy, good position. And he basically turned around to me and says, what the F do you know about my flat? You've never seen it. And I said to him, well, I saw the flat below was exactly the same. And I sold that for 31,000 as well last week. He went, okay, then I'll take it. And that was the first deal. I'd never actually seen another flat. It just came straight out in my head. And I did the deal. And from then on, I worked really hard at Best Eves. I did okay. I worked there. And then I got a bit bored with it. And I decided I could do better on my own than I could do working it for someone like Bears to Ease, who gave me good training to a degree. They were quite old, established firm, very sort of corporate mentality, which really isn't me. So I decided to get out of that, and I opened the office in Radlett in, as I said, in April '86. I did it with a partner at the time. He's not my partner anymore, but he's still a good mate of mine. And I opened then in April 1986. And I came into an area which I really didn't know, even though I lived only up the road in L Street. I didn't really know the property market. It was so different to Bearstowes. And Bearstowes, the phone rings off the hook. I was based in Hampstead. They're not open there anymore. And the phones were ringing like you got in and it didn't stop ringing. You started in Radler, it's a totally different. The pace is much slower and everything takes longer. But I had to get used to that, and that took a bit of time. That did take some
Okay.
time.
So you opened in a new area. One, how'd you get to
Yes.
know the area? And then how'd you then learn to deal with the pace of that market? And again, there's people that are now going self-employed, they're starting their own agencies. Knowing
Yes.
what you know now, what advice can you give these people when they're starting up in new areas?
Okay. Well, what I did was I just literally drove round. I've got a bit of a photographic memory, so I'm quite lucky in that respect. What I did is I literally drove around every single road. I just drove round and round. Those were the days before Waze, or, you had a map and you had to drive around. I just literally drove around the whole of Radlett. I drove around every single road, every single day. Every single day. Oh, AirPods. Hang on a second, put that back in. So I drove around every single road, every day, and just got to loads. I mean, there were times when I was asked to do evaluation, I didn't know where it was. And it was, I remember once going to evaluation, and I had to stop someone in the street and say, "Can you tell me where X road is?" And he said, "Oh yeah, it's up there on the left." And I did that. And that's the only way you could learn. It was, you didn't have weight, you had no phones, you had no mobiles, you had nothing. It was a totally different business to how it is now. I actually preferred the business then than I do now. It's a lot less complicated and simpler. And that's how I learned. And you went into valuations, you got them wrong, you got them right, but it doesn't take long. It's not rocket science valuing a property. You get an idea pretty quick. And I built my name up pretty quickly. Estate agency was very different in those days. I mean, Stephen, you were an agent as well back in the day, I think, as well. And sold agencies weren't what they are now. You had a sold agency with someone. You just knocked on their door and said, "I've got someone." They go, "Okay, get them in." You did that. So I was canvassing all the time, looking at the newspaper and these tiny little adverts, and trying to see if the same house was next to the same tree, because it wasn't like online. It didn't say Watford Road, Radlett. It just said Radlett, and you had to pick out what road it was, and that's how you learned the area. And what I did was then I started canvassing these houses, and I vividly remember I sold a house in a road called Shenley Hill, and they had it on the market with another agent. I went round there, and I said to them, "It's too much money. You want to sell it, you've got to drop the price, and I'll sell it." So we dropped the price by like £20,000, which in those days was a lot of money. And we sold the house, and the guy said to me, "Oh, you've done a brilliant job for me." I said, "I haven't done a brilliant job. I just told you the truth." And that's what people need to know. And I think the other problem with the estate agents at the moment is that they're more worried about what their boss is going to say about getting a house on the market than they are about getting a house on the market at the right price. And that's what it all comes down to. Selling houses is not rocket science. It's very, very simple. You go and you value something, and you value it at the right price. Maybe you put it on a little bit higher, but I would say if I was starting an estate agency today, I would stick to my guns and do exactly the same. I wouldn't change. I've always been like this. It's a bit Marmite approach, because some clients love their ego being massaged. I'm not interested in that. I'm just not interested. I don't think it lasts this long.
Pricing is really important. Pricing is really important, and especially at the moment. And we had a situation. We won't mention the person where I sat on 3 valuations that day, and one of the agents came round and he was £400,000 more than anybody else, which was crazy. And then very soon, he actually changed it and came down by 400,000. So they embarrass themselves by doing that.
Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, in 40 years of business, I've got them wrong as well. I'm not right every time. If I was right every time, I wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd be off in the Caribbean somewhere. But I always say to clients when I go to value their house is that, they sometimes say to me, well, the other agent says it's worth £300,000 more than you. And I will say to them, yeah, but he can tell you what he likes. I said, if a lawyer gives you bad advice, you sue him. If a doctor gives you bad advice, you sue him. If a stage agent gives you bad advice, tough. It's an opinion. And that is the problem. And as I said earlier, the biggest problem with estate agents today is and I won't mention names of estate agents, but everyone who I'm talking about, that they've all got to meet their requirements. We must get 42 appointments today. You've got to get 7 instructions. You've got to get 14 this and 15 that. It's all a load of nonsense. You're just trying to you'll tell the client what they want to hear so you can get the instruction, and then your boss is happy you've got the instruction. That's not the way estate agency should work. Agency work on the basis your house is worth £1 million, put it on at 1.1 ish and take a bid. There's no point, because you put it on at 1.3 or 1.4, and this is really important. I want to explain to people who want to get in the business. I always define it as like people who are going to buy a Bentley, and you walk into a Bentley showroom, and I tell this to all my staff, and I push this all the time, and I explain this to clients. As someone who wants to buy a Bentley, and they go into a Bentley showroom, And the guy in the Bentley showroom says, I haven't got a, says to Mr. Smith, I haven't got a Bentley, but I've got a lovely Volkswagen here. Right? And the guy says, well, I don't want a Volkswagen, I want a Bentley. He said, well, make me an offer for the Volkswagen. Well, I don't want that. I want the Bentley. It's exactly the same with the house. If you send somebody into a house who wants to spend £1.5 million and you've got the house on 1.5, but the house is only worth £1 million, he ain't going to buy it. Doesn't matter. He won't make an offer. You'll just get the wrong people through the door. But all they're interested in is getting the house on the market and work the client down in the price. And that is bad. In my opinion, this is my opinion. A lot of agents will disagree because they say, if you've got the instruction, you've always got an opportunity to sell it. And that is true. But why take 6 months to sell a house? You know, in my opinion, if you take a house on at the right price, in today's market, if you don't have a bar within a month, it's the wrong price, especially where I work. I can only talk about where I work. I can't talk about other areas in the country. But in the area I work, it's a very niche area. If you don't sell a house within a month, 6 weeks, the price is wrong. It's that simple. It is really simple. And I see houses coming on the market, offers in excess of, in today's market, which I think is insane. I think it's insane. I won't change. I'm a leopard, never change its spots. I just don't get it.
So one of the things that I really loved what you did was you added value. And what I mean by adding value, you thought outside the box. And you most probably, it's not thinking outside the box, because I think it was just a really simple thing that you said. You know, potentially you're gonna have buyers that come to see this particular property. They're going to ask you questions whether it can be extended or not. Let's get an architect round before it goes on to the market. So we get an idea, can it be done, can't be done, because these are the questions we're going to be asked. And to me, that's a really, really simple thing. But
that's common sense.
It adds value. It adds value and makes a difference. It is all about finding out, whether you're in Radlett or anywhere else, it is very
absolutely. You have to think outside the box. I've always said, especially in the last few years, I'm an estate agent stroke social worker. You're dealing with people who are selling houses sometimes for the wrong reasons, you know, death, divorce, losing their jobs, and it's stressful. And if you give those people the wrong advice, you're adding more stress to their job, to what they're doing. You know, because if you give somebody an advice, well, I can sell you that, no problem, I'll sell it for that all day long. I mean, if I had £1 for every time somebody walked into my office and registered, they don't walk in anymore, they register online, and they say, oh yeah, my estate agent came around and he said he sold my house in a week. And I had £1 for that, I could have retired as well. And I said, well, of course they're going to say that, aren't they? They're going to say that. Estate agents is all, it's as I said earlier, it's just about being straight with clients. If you're straight with your client, they're never going to be surprised. And if you're dealing with a person I won't take properties on if I think the client isn't listening to what I say and is so mad money. I don't take it on. And I think as an agent, you're stronger by doing that than being weaker. I think you're weak by taking everything on the market that you can possibly get. And that's, you said, coming back to where we started, is how I started my business. I decided I'm going to deal with clients the way I like to be dealt with myself. I'm not a chameleon. I am what I am, and I'm going to do that. And I was 27 years old, right? And I was up against a very, very established estate agent called Barry Allsuch, who sadly is not well at the moment. Great guy, brilliant. He was the most brilliant estate agent. And he put Radlett on the map. It wasn't me, it was him. But I came along on his coattails. I was 8 years younger than him, and he didn't like me being there, and I had to fight my way to get there. And I learnt that in Radlett, if you're straight with people, you'll get a reputation. And it's the same when anywhere you work, in any agency. If you start your business by being straight with your client, you'll never go wrong. Because at the end of the day, even if they sell the house for less money through another estate agent, but you didn't get instructed, they will remember that. They will remember. They'll tell their friends, all right, I didn't give it to Neil because he said it was worth less, but he was right. And the amount of people that come to see me today who are not even selling and say, look, I remember what you said to me. You were spot on. Can you give me this? Another important thing about agency is valuing people's houses who are not moving. Okay? So I get a lot of calls. Oh, I'm looking to extend my house. What do you think I should do? And the first thing I say to them is, well, if you extend the house, how long are you going to live there? Oh, 10, 15 years. I said, do it. Right? He said, well, I had another estate agent round, they say to me, who said to me, well, you know, the house is worth this. It won't be worth that when you've done it. I said, well, who cares? In 10 or 15 years' time, you worry about it then. And that's the advice. It's really important for estate agents. It's just not about, you've got to look long term. And that's how I've run my business. And that's why I'm still open. It's I've always looked long term. You know, as you said earlier about thinking outside the box, we, in 2008, when the market was on its knees, as I mentioned earlier, Barry Such and I were in competition. I mean, basically, we were like guns at each other, knife, you know, and it's do anything to stop the other guy doing business. I rang him up and I said, Barry, look, you know, the business is in a dire state. You know, you can't sell houses, you can't do anything. There's no finance, nothing. We've got to work together. We've got to work together. We've got to up the fees, right? And we go out and we say to clients, those are our fees. We're the two best agents in town, and we split it. And I said, and Barry, when the market comes back again, the knives will come out again. And that's exactly what we did. And because we did that, we survived. We got through it. A lot of agents didn't get through it. And that's all due to because they're so thinking of their own pride that they don't think outside the box about business. The estate agency is a business, and you've got to think it's our business. And I did that. And I said to him, Barry, this is the only way you and I are going to survive. What's the point of us all going bust? It's pointless. Let's survive together and then fight together later. Have a truce, for a better word, of what's going on in the world today. You know where I'm coming from. And he said, okay. And we did that. And we both survived.
Good.
And
well,
that's where
we got a view up. So, Amy, thanks very much. So, agrees, manage expectations at all times. Totally agree. So, thank you. And thank you for commenting. Thank you for watching. Just a few things that I want to pick up on and what you said.
Go on.
I totally agree about its long term, and rather than too many agents see it as a one-off transaction, and it's all about giving exceptional advice. And I remember at Green and Co when I went on appraisal, and I just said to the lady, have you thought about keeping the property rather than rent it out rather than selling it? And she said no, and she rented it out, and 4 years later the manager of that office then went back. And she said, oh, is Stephen Brown still there? And he said, yes, but he's in a different branch now. Well, will you thank Stephen, please? Because he was the only one that gave me that advice. Every agent wanted the transaction today, but he was thinking. And I think you're spot on with the extensions and the wise advice there. Rather than, you know, estate agents are thinking about, right, let's get the money today. Let's get the money today. They're not thinking about, hold on, you know what, if I give them the right advice, they're then going to recommend me, as you rightly say, to friends, family, colleagues and neighbours. And then just guess what? We're going to get more business as a result of it in the long term. So
the other thing I would say is very important, which is one of the most, and Stephen, I'm sure you'll agree with me, the most important thing about a estate agency is make sure there's good lawyers in the deal. Because today it is a nightmare.
Couldn't agree more.
When we started selling properties 40 years ago, you had no emails, right? Yeah, a fax, which was just coming out when I started. You had no emails. Everything was done by post, and sales went through straight quicker. And now you've got all these solicitors who are tick boxing, and all these estate agents, all these people out there who call themselves estate agents, who advise their clients to use conveyancing firms, should be shot. That's my opinion. Not wounded, not killed, wounded. And basically, because they're killing the business, these conveyancing firms, I never understand with people in the, and hello, what's that?
Is that my dog? He's joining in as well.
It's very strange. I'm waiting for my dog to start barking, but he hasn't yet. She hasn't. And I lost my train of thought now. Hang on a second. Yeah, so the lawyers are causing a lot of problems in the business at the moment. The conveyancing firms are taking too long and too stressful and ticking every single box. And I think what's amazing, and it's in my area, I can only talk from my area and areas around, and I've got another office as well, where basically we're selling houses for £1-2 million, and we have clients saying, well, the solicitor you recommended me to, Neil, is £300 more. Well, that rests my case, don't I? I mean,
you pay for what you get without shadow.
Absolutely. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
How do you find good lawyers then?
Well, people that you work with. I mean, over 40 years, I've I deal with only three to five lawyers. I know other lawyers are excellent, but they're more too expensive in town, and clients locally don't want to use. They start charging a fortune, which I get it. But there are very good local lawyers, and I think estate agents, when you're opening up, is go around and see lawyers and say to lawyers, look, we can give you business. I give one firm a lot of business. I don't get anything back. All I get back is the exchanges. That's all I'm interested in. I get all these firms messaging me all the time. Give us referral. We'll give you 250 quid. No, I'd rather knock 250 quid off my fees and give it to a better lawyer. And I think that is where a lot of, this is the biggest problem in agency with all these big firms that, you've got their mortgage arms and their lawyer arms and this arm and that arm. It doesn't help the deal go through. The whole concept about estate agency is the deal.
You're in charge of government policy. How do we resolve it?
Well, fees should go up to 5%. How would I change it? I think a lot of it is wrong. I think a lot. I can only talk about sales, not lettings. I'm not an expert on lettings. Am I boring you, Stephen? You just walked away. God, what did I do? On the sales side, I think it's so archaic the way the system works, but I don't know how you would change it. I'd love to get it changed. I think the system of, well, I've accepted your offer, but I go along with it. I say to all my guys in my office and everybody, I said, buyers and sellers, their word is their bond until they change their mind. And that's how you have to work. And, all these, we had a sale that actually fall through yesterday, a big one, because a purchaser was buying the house from me, got his mortgage offer, but never told me he was selling a commercial building for 2.5 million quid. And said to me, I'm really sorry, it fell through. So the system is archaic. But I don't know how you change it, the way that, solicitors spend weeks and weeks backwards and forwards asking stupid questions. Restricted covenant situations in our area are a joke. And we've got covenants on houses from 100 years ago. And the only way we can get deals through is getting indemnity policies. And these insurance companies are making fortunes, absolute fortunes. It's absolutely disgraceful, out of people paying indemnity because their lender won't give them a mortgage because there's a 1905 conveyance that says you can't extend the back of the house. Well, I think logic's got to come into it. I actually said to a local lawyer about 30 years ago, I wish him and I could just open up this. I'd take these indemnity policies all day because no one's ever going to come back and claim against it. And I think it's wrong. And I think the general public are being totally screwed by this. I think it's immoral. It's actually immoral. There's a development in Radlett, a whole big area which was built in the late 50s, early 60s, and every single house has got restricted covenant against extending it. Okay, there's probably 300, 400 houses that were built back in the late 50s, early 60s, and when the houses were built, obviously the developer didn't want anyone extending the house while they were selling others, because obviously I wasn't around then, but it obviously took a long time. And now this company went bust in 1990. So the company went bust 33 years ago. And even today, I've had to agree someone to pay £800 for an indemnity policy because in case somebody comes back from this company from 33 years ago and says, oh, you can't extend the house. Every single house has been extended. So there's hundreds of thousands of pounds being spent. And then what happens is the person who's taken out the indemnity policy for a house, for sake of argument, worth £1 million, then sells this house in 10 years' time for 1.5 million, and the purchase lawyer says, oh, your indemnity is not good enough. It's only up to £1 million. It should be £1.5 million. So you've got to spend. And that's what's going on. And I think it's immoral. And I'm totally against it. And it really winds me up. But there's nothing you can do. And that's what I think. If I could change anything, that's what I would change.
Okay, coming back, you talked about Barry Dutch, and you're very, very grateful about what you were saying about him, and it's nice to hear. What do you think? And you've worked with a lot of people, and what does it make to be a top performer? What do you have to be a top performer in a estate agency, in your opinion? I know you talked about working hard, but what do you look for when you're people?
When I'm looking for, I've got very, very good staff. I've got one guy's worked for me for 13 years. I've got somebody else that's come to me a year ago. When I've looked for my staff, I look for somebody who works hard, thinks outside the box like me. It's not just somebody, you can create a lot of business but you can value a house. You're having a great memory. You could value a house 6 months ago, and the person says, "I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure." And somebody rings up and says, "I'm looking for a house like this," because where we are is quite specialised. It's not like some areas where it's all 3-bed semis and there's hundreds of them. Where, in our area, there's only 2,000 homes, okay, in Radlett itself. So you go and value a house, and I'm looking for people who can think, you know what, Joe Bloggs would be interested in that. And we do a lot of business off market, a lot of sales, like one-offs, where we go to see a house and we think, you know what, they'll buy that. And we do the deal. And that's what I'm looking for with people. It's just not it's very, very easy as an estate agent, especially nowadays, because when I started work, we had the card system where you had people's name on the card. And it's a much better system in a way that you got to know your people. You saw their names all the time. Now it's on a computer screen. It's not the same. You have things that say they're hot, they're not, they're this, but you don't have, it's not exactly the same. So you need to have someone, and my staff are like that they're always thinking, you know what about that? What about this? And we discuss all day long in the office. That's what we're talking about. We don't discuss the deals we've done. As far as I'm concerned, when a deal is done, I'm not interested. It's exchanged, finished. The king is dead, long live the king. We get on with the next one. And that's what I do with my staff. And that's what I'm looking for somebody. So I'm not looking for somebody who's a pen pusher, who's very good on the computer. The three of us in there, no, not great on a computer. There's a problem on it. We get someone to sort it out. We're good at selling houses. And that's what estate agency is about in a nutshell, selling houses and putting people together and knowing what people want. It's very different in different areas. I mean, where I am, as I said earlier, it's very niche. So somebody can phone up and say, look, I'm looking for a 4 or 5 bedroom house. I want a half an acre of land. It's got a potential. I want a bit of character. And we've got that. That's what we have. But people ring up and say, I'm looking for a house up to 2 million and I want 42 acres. And we say, well, go somewhere else. We ain't got it. So, I do say to them, I said, well, don't waste my time. You're wasting your time. When we get people ring up and say, I want to buy a bungalow. Okay, how much? 500,000. Forget it. Don't waste your time. You won't buy it here. Go down the road. They sell them, in other areas. And people like that. And that's what I do with my staff. I just make sure we just be on the ball. That's what my old partner, a guy called Stephen Barnett, on the ball. You've got to be on the ball. I mean, he's got a guy who works with him, his partner, Ollie. Brilliant. That's what it's all about. It's all about putting people together, remembering what you've seen. And it's improved a lot, this, because obviously now we spend more time, we take people around houses. The house I met you at, I came in and I said, we've got the buyer. We know who wants it because we've shown that buyer so many houses that we know more than he does what he wants. And we sell it the house. And that's what it's about. And if estate agents look after their buyers, the seller will look after themselves, because just throw mud against the wall, which is a lot of agents like to do, is not the way to go forward. And I always say to clients, it's not about how many, they say to me, it's like sometimes you take a house on the market and you sell it to the first person or second person. They go, God, that was quick. Am I selling it too cheap? And I said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll send you away a load of messes for 6 months and I'll bring the buyer in. Would you prefer that? Spend 6 months just sitting there? I said, that's what it's about. What do you want? You don't want to be my mate. You want me to be your agent. You want me to sell it. I don't want to be your mate. Spend 6 months talking to you.
And again, I think you're spot on, and I think it's a really nice place to end. It's all about being a deal maker. It's all about being a match.
It's a deal maker. That's what I said earlier. Is that you're doing deals. The important thing, if you're learning to come into our business, is you've got to get the deal done. And also, it's not about when you get the deal done, just leave it. It's chasing the deal, driving the deal through. That's what we do.
Yeah, know your buyers, know your buyers, drive the deal through, add value, make a difference. Neil, thank you so much for your time today. If people want to find you and get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Email neil@village-estates.co.uk.
Brilliant. Well,
and especially if you've got a house in Radlett, I'll come back to you even quicker.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for your time. Thank you everybody for watching.
Okay.
Please like it, share it, and get the message out, and have a lovely weekend. Thank you, everybody.
And you. Cheers. Bye.